Welcome to the Communication Mastery Podcast with me, Mark Burlinson. We're tackling miscommunication with the power of understanding. We're growing our mastery of the foundation of teamwork and of all relationships. And so I want to ask you to help me spread the word about stronger, more effective communication by inviting some friends to listen along with you. Then discuss what you've learned and give me your feedback. What would you like to hear from us in future episodes so we can make this podcast even more effective? Thanks for joining me. Let's jump in. Welcome back. This week, I want to talk about the quality of our relationships and the impact that has on life as a whole, because it's so hard sometimes to improve the quality of your relationships. And most of it comes down to a lack of understanding of one another. And I've found in my own life that understanding myself more fully and more accurately has enabled me to understand others better, because now I know where I'm starting from. It's a little bit like what I've seen in my neighborhood recently. There's been a survey crew working on, I think they're going to do some road improvements or something. But the survey crew have a reference point, and then they have another piece of equipment, 100 yards down the street, and they can establish levels and measurements and all of that by having those different points of reference. It's the same to some degree with communication. If I understand where I'm coming from and how I prefer to communicate, and how that is now, because communication is never static, then I have a reference point to enable me to adapt to you and to connect with you in whatever setting it may be. And when we establish stronger connections in our relationships, then quality of life increases. I, I want to encourage you to listen to as many podcasts and get as much input as you can in this whole area. One of the people I follow is Simon Sinek, who you may have heard of. He's very popular in the business world and has a lot of wonderful insight. And on his podcast, which is focused on optimism, interestingly, he wants to improve things by being an optimist. He's recognized what he has to offer, and he brings that optimism to the whole picture of what he works on. But he had a guest on his podcast a few weeks ago, a lady called Esther Perel, who's quite famous in the relationships counseling area. She has a PhD. She does a lot of couples therapy, but she's broadened that couples therapy into working with businesses as well. So it's fascinating hearing the two of them talk. They are close friends, and although they work in slightly different but overlapping areas, they're close friends, and there was obviously a dynamic between them that's developed over time, and they've learned how to communicate with each other. But they both landed on this simple phrase that was the inspiration for this episode, really, that the quality of our relationships determines the quality of our life. And that set me thinking, because relationships have to be based on communication. That is the fuel of all of our relationships. If there's no communication, there's no relationship. But their scientific work and their psychological work, both of these very clever people, they've discovered that it's not your income level, it's not your work-life balance, it's not where you live, your location. It's not the level of promotion you've achieved. Are you at the top of the ladder, or are you on the first rung? All of those things do have a bearing on our quality of life. But the fundamental factor that determines quality of life across the board, whether in business or in the community, is the quality of our relationships. Let me interrupt today's episode for just a moment to talk about how every relationship in our lives is built on a foundation of communication. So at home, so few families invest the time and the energy to understand themselves and each other so that they can bring out the best in one another. You'll find as you look at the profiles of your family members that each of you has something different to bring to the table. And if we can maximize the input from each of you, your family is going to prosper in all kinds of ways that you never thought possible. So I encourage you, let's look at your family's communication styles together and unpack your profiles to see how we can turn your differences into strengths and see your family flourish even more because you took a few days or a few moments to invest in communication. Now let's go back to the episode. And so that reinforced for me the importance of what we're doing together, talking about gaining and improving our communication mastery. Because if I invest in communication, the quality of my relationships is going to improve. And I see it again and again, just with friends, not just with clients, but with friends as well. Learning how to communicate. I was talking with a friend the other day, and she'd had a tough day at work, and one of her clients, one of her, it's actually a medical setting, so it was a patient, but one of the people that she was interacting with had said some things to her in a way that really hit her wrong, because the patient had no point of reference to understand communication styles. And so the way this patient had expressed themselves really touched a nerve in her that caused emotions to come to the surface. And so because of our friendship, we were able to take a step back from that emotion and begin to process, okay, which language was hurt by that, which language was tweaked, and why was that, and what can I learn from it? And also, can I bring other languages in the team meeting in my head, the one we talk about all the time? How can the team meeting in my head help that language to process what happened in a way that doesn't cause me to be affected by it for the rest of the week? And because we've invested in honing our communication to be able to make a connection, that improved her quality of life. She was able to go back to work the next day and not be still thinking about that interaction the previous day that had caused her so much distress. And she'd processed it healthily, and it was now behind her. It was in the rearview mirror, and she was able to move forward. And so maybe you want to Google that Simon Sinek podcast with Esther Perel and pull it up and take a listen, because there's all kinds of very helpful insights in there, all of it based on the effectiveness of communication in building the quality of our relationships. And in that context, what I wanted to leave you with for today was the thought that taking a few minutes to reflect on some key relationships and maybe pick one thing that I could do that will cause that relationship's quality to increase. One communication skill that I've learned by listening to the podcast that I can apply that will meet someone else's need, or answer a question more adequately. Or secondly, if I've got a relationship in my life, in my circle, that's struggling right now, to invest a few minutes in thinking about, why is there a conflict here? Why is there a bit of gravel in the shoe, if you like, in our connection, in our relationship? What is it that I could take out that's causing that conflict? What could I address that would make a difference? Because both of those steps will be valuable to the person that's on the other side of that relationship with you. But conversely, when they thrive, you're going to thrive because you're in this relationship. And so investing time in meeting the needs of another is always beneficial to me as well, because then I get the fullness of who they are in our friendship or in our relationship, rather than the diminished version of them that's caused by distress or conflict or misunderstanding. Let me interrupt today's episode just for a moment to address small business owners, because the challenges of running a business are multiple, aren't they? There's all of the technology that you have to master. There's the staff turnover. There's hybrid and remote work. There's all kinds of different things that you have to consider every day. But sometimes that causes us to overlook the primary thing that really means that your business will succeed, and that is your people. Your most important asset is the people that are running your business alongside of you. And every one of them is different. And so that causes all kinds of potential for misunderstanding or miscommunication, tension in the team. And this is the core issue for small business owners today. It's to understand your people and then to maximize each one's impact and satisfaction in being part of your business. Communication IQ can really help with all of those issues and enable you as a business owner to be more relaxed about how fruitful and effective your team can be. So if it's been a year or more since your team thought about communication, reach out to me and let's see how I could help you put communication back at the center of your business goals so that you see the benefit right away. Now let's go back to the episode. And secondly, in any relationship, there's always going to be a sort of standard fallback position to start from. It's usually connected to the primary communication style of the person you're in the relationship with, where you can meet a need or you can answer a question, you can develop a key that is their specific expression of that primary language, where you know you can use that key to re-establish a stronger connection whenever necessary, and then build from there into whatever else is needed to repair whatever strain has come in or to address whatever challenge that the two of you are facing together. So I want to encourage you to invest in the quality of relationships through improving communication, because the quality of your life will improve dramatically as you do that. And again, I find again and again that this is something that my clients tell me that having a coaching session has really helped them to do that. Or maybe using one of the packages that I offer, the Communication IQ for couples, or even in the business setting, bringing a team together and spending a couple of hours looking at what can we learn from our recent experience. Don't leave Communication IQ as something that I did 6 months ago or 2 years ago and now I think I know what the answers are. Make sure you're applying it in your day-to-day life, because using it consistently improves relationships and has an impact directly on your quality of life. So thanks to Simon Sinek and Esther Perel for the thought. And if I can help you with communication skills that will improve your relationships, I'd be honored to do that. So send me a message, tell me what you'd like me to focus on in future episodes, or give me your feedback on how this episode has been valuable to you. And don't forget to share it with a friend that you know would be helped by what we've talked about today. That's it for this week. I'll see you again next week. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. It would mean a lot to me if you'd rate and review the podcast so it helps more listeners to find us. But also, would you give me your feedback on things you'd like to hear about in future episodes? And remember to share the episode with a friend if you see something that would benefit them as well. You can reach me with feedback through my website at markburlinson.com. Just click on the contact button and send me a message. I respond to everyone personally, and I really want to hear from you. So thank you again for listening, sharing, reviewing, and giving me your feedback.